Hello guys, and welcome back to Reading Club. Today I'm going to read you a new book. It's called Dirty Bertie, Fleas, and it's also divided into 3 sections or story as in every Dirty Bertie book. The first story is Fleas, the second Dare, and the third is Fire. So today I'm going to read you story number 1. Fleas. Chapter 1. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Bertie was reading his comic at the table. "Bertie, do you have to do that?" asked Mum. "What? Keep scratching like that. You're worse than a dog." "I can't help it. I'm itchy," said Bertie. He went back to his comic. Scratch, scratch, scratch. He scratched his leg under the table. Scratch, scratch. He scratched under his pajama top. Scratch, scratch. He itched his arm. "Bertie, what's wrong with you?" said Mum. "Sorry," shrugged Bertie. "I'm itchy all over." "Let me take a look at you," said Mum. She rolled up her sleeve to inspect his arm. A look of horror appeared on her face. "Oh no! Fleas!" "Fleas!" cried Susie. "Fleas!" cried Dad. "Where? I can't see them," said Bertie, peering at his arm curiously. Mum pointed at the tiny red dots above his elbow. "There," she said, "those are flea bites." Susie shifted her chair away from Bertie. Keep away. I don't want your fleas." She scratched her hair. Maybe her grubby little brother had given her fleas already. Maybe she had flea bites all over her. She fled from the table and dashed upstairs to the bathroom. "But where did he get them?" asked Dad. "I bet I can guess," said Mum grimly. Whiffer was in the lounge, dozing peacefully in an armchair. Scratch, scratch, scratch. His back leg swished like a windscreen wiper. "There," said Mum, "just as I thought. There's the flea bag." Bertie bent over to take a closer look. It was true. Whiffer's fur was alive with tiny black creatures hopping around like fleas. "Good grief," said Mum. "He's crawling with them." "Well, millions," said Bertie. "Enough to start a flea circus," muttered Dad, keeping his distance. "What's a flea circus?" asked Bertie. "Oh, you used to get them years ago," said Dad, "performing fleas, doing tricks and things." Bertie could hardly believe his ears. A flea circus with performing fleas. What a fantastic idea! He'd already tried to train his pet earthworm, but Mom had put a stop to that when she found Arthur in his bed. The fleas? That was a much better idea. Fleas could jump and hop, so surely they could be trained to do other things, like acrobatics. Fleas turning somersaults. Fleas standing on each other's shoulders. Fleas flying through the air on a flea trapeze. All he had to do was catch some of Wilfer's fleas and he could have his very own circus. Mom had Whiffer by the collar and was pulling him out of the armchair. "We've got to do something," she said. "Fleas spread. They lay their eggs everywhere. They're probably all over the furniture by now." Just thinking about it made Dad feel itchy. "How do you get rid of them?" he asked. Mom dragged Whiffer through the kitchen and out that back door. "You can buy flea shampoo, but someone will have to bath him." "I'll do it," said Bertie. "No," said both of his parents at once. "He'll have to go to the vet's," said Mom, eyeing Dad. "You can take him." "Why me?" said Dad. "I took him last time." Dad remembered their last visit all too well. The vet had tried to force a pill down Whiffer's throat. Whiffer had spat it out 3 times. "Well, I can't do it," said Mom flatly. "I'm taking Susie shopping this morning." "But I've got work to do," protested Dad. "This is an emergency," said Mom. "The house is crawling with fleas. Bertie's already been bitten. They won't just walk out of the door, you know." All right, groaned Dad. "I'll take him." Chapter 2. Bertie waited till Mom and Susie had gone out. He crept out of the back door, armed with his flea-collecting kit. Whiffer wagged his tail, pleased to see him. Bertie crouched beside him with a toothbrush and a matchbox. With a little coaxing, he managed to get a few of the fleas on the end of the toothbrush. He shook them into the matchbox and slid the lid shut quickly. "Bertie," called Dad from indoors. "Can you come here a minute?" Bertie stuffed the matchbox into his pocket and went inside. Dad was working at the computer in the back room. "Bertie," he said, "are you busy right now?" "Not especially," said Bertie. "I was thinking, maybe you'd like to take Whiffer to the vet's. Here's your dog." "No thanks. Can I go now?" "Wait," said Dad desperately. "I'll pay you." Bertie paused in the doorway. "How much?" £2. Bertie thought about it. As usual, he'd spent all his pocket money. "3," said Dad. "Okay, £5. That's my last offer." "Done," said Bertie. He held out his hand. "Oh no," said Dad. "You don't get paid until the job is done. And you'd better take Gran to go with you." Bertie nodded. £5. He could do a lot with that. He was already planning what he needed for his flea circus. Ding dong. Bertie rang Gran's doorbell. "Hello, Bertie," said Gran, opening the door. "What a nice surprise. Come in." "I better not," said Bertie. "Dad wants me to take Whiffer to the VETS." "The what?" said Gran. Bertie lowered his voice. "The vets." "Oh, the vets! Why are you whispering?" "Because I don't want Whiffer to hear. He hates the vets." Gran looked behind him. "Who's going with you?" she asked. "Ah," said Bertie. "Well." "I see," said Gran. "I'd better get my coat then." "So what's the matter with Whiffer?" asked Gran, as they headed up the road with Whiffer on his lead. "Oh, nothing much. He's just got fleas." "Fleas?" Gran stopped dead. "Yes," said Bertie. "Loads of them. You should take a look, Gran. There's like a flea party." "No thanks," said Gran. "I'll take your word for it." She shook her head. "No wonder your dad didn't want to come. Typical. Ask your Gran. She'll go to the vet's with you." "Shh," said Bertie. "Not so loud." "Don't be daft, Bertie," said Gran. "He's a dog. He can't understand a word we're saying." The dog lead suddenly yanked her backwards and they both turned around. Whiffer had stopped and was lying down on the pavement. "See," said Bertie. "He said the word. Now we'll never get him there." He clapped his hand. "Come on, Whiffer, let's go." Whiffer wouldn't budge. Bertie pleaded with him. He spoke in his dog training voice. He tried to drag Whiffer along by his lead, but Whiffer dug in his heels and refused to budge. "Now what?" sighed Gran. Bertie tried to think. If they didn't get Whiffer to the vet's, there would be no £5 reward. "Maggots," he said suddenly. "Maggots," said Gran. "The poor dog's got fleas already." "Bertie, this isn't one of your harebrained ideas, is it?" "No," said Bertie. "Trust me, Gran. This will work," said Bertie. "No," said Bertie. "Trust me, Gran. This will work. When Dad goes fishing, he uses maggots. The fish come after them, so what we'll need is something that Whiffer will come after." Gran looked at him. "Why do I get the feeling I'm going to regret this?" "You won't," said Bertie. "I promise. Just lend me your key." Chapter 3. 10 minutes later, Bertie was back. Gran stared. He was wearing his helmet and rollerblades and pulling a bag that thundered along on 2 wheels. "That's my shopping bag," said Gran. "I know," said Bertie, beaming. "It's perfect, and look what I found in the fridge." He unzipped the bag to reveal a string of sausages. "And that's my supper," said Gran. What are you up to?" "It's simple," explained Bertie. "I skate along with the sausages in the bag. As soon as Whiffer sees them, he'll start chasing me. He loves sausages." "And what am I doing?" "Well, you're zooming off with my supper," asked Gran. "You hold on to Whiffer's lead," said Bertie. "Don't let him catch the sausages, or it won't work." Gran shook her head. "I must be balmy to listen to you." Bertie's plan worked perfectly, at least to begin with. Bertie whizzed off on his rollerblades with the sausages trailing from the shopping bag. As soon as Whiffer spotted them, he barked and sprang to his feet. Then he was off, dragging Gran behind him at turbo speed. "Hang on, Gran," Bertie called over his shoulder. "I am hanging on," puffed Gran. "Can't you tell him to slow down?" Bertie skated through the precinct, waving in and out of shoppers. Whiffer bounded along behind, tugging at his lead and barking excitedly. People stopped to stare at the old lady chasing a dog who was chasing a string of sausages. Everything might have been all right if Whiffer hadn't barked so loudly, but Whiffer always barked when he was excited, and he was excited now. As they came tearing down Riddle Road, Alcitane at number 12 heard Whiffer barking. Seeing some escaping sausages, he eagerly joined the chase. Farther down the road they met the terrier at 47 and the scruffy mongrel at 72. Both of them were fond of sausages and even fonder of a good chase. "Help!" cried Gran. "Bertie, stop! I'm being attacked!" Bertie looked behind him. Gran had a pack of dogs snapping at her heels. She was red in the face and skidding along like a tomato on water skis. Whiffer was gaining on the sausages. Bertie skated faster. He could see the vets at the end of the road. "Hang on, Gran, we're almost there," he yelled. Turning sharp left, he whizzed into the drive, up a ramp and through the open door. The receptionist met him in the hall with a pile of files in her arms. Her mouth dropped open. "I can't stop," warned Bertie. He plunged straight into her, scattering papers everywhere. The shopping bag did a somersault over Bertie's head and the sausages came flying out. A warm, wet tongue licked his face as the Whiffer bounded on top of him. Gran arrived soon after, panting heavily. "Well, that worked a treat," she said. Chapter 4. "Have they gone?" asked Bertie. Gran glanced out of the window. "No, I'm afraid not." They were sitting in Mr. Cage's waiting room. Outside, the Alcitane and his friends kept watch by the door. They had been thrown out once, but they weren't giving up that easily. The receptionist seemed to think it was all Bertie's fault. She said he had no business bringing every dog in the neighbourhood. Bertie tried to explain they weren't his dogs, but the receptionist went on telling them off. Then Gran got cross too and said if she didn't get a glass of water soon they'd have to call an ambulance. "At least I got Whiffer to the vets," thought Bertie. Whiffer was sitting at his feet, happily slobbering over the sausages. It seemed to have escaped his notice that he was in a vet's waiting room. Bertie glanced round that room at the other pets. There was a parrot, a hamster, a snake curled up in a box, and a poodle that looked like a powder puff in legs. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Whiffer's back leg was itching again. The owner of the poodle looked down her nose at Bertie. "What's wrong with your dog?" "Oh, he's fine, really," said Bertie. "Just a few fleas." "Fleas? I hope you're joking." "No," said Bertie. "I can show you if you like." He reached into his pocket, but the woman got up from her chair and quickly backed away. She called to her poodle. "Fifi, darling, get away from that filthy flea bag." "He's not a filthy flea bag," said Bertie. "He had a bath last month." The woman picked up her poodle and sat down on the other side of the room. Bertie and Gran were left sitting by themselves. Gran was chuckling to herself. Bertie hoped the Whiffer had managed to pass a few of his fleas to Fifi. Just then, the door to the street opened and a woman entered, carrying a fat ginger cat. Whiffer looked up and growled. Bertie noticed the door had been left open. "Excuse me," he said, "you better shut that. There's some—" But the warning came too late. The Alston and his friends had seen their chance. In a few seconds, their waiting room was full of barking, yapping, growling dogs. The Alcitane chased the ginger cat around the table. Whiffer and the terrier snarled and fought over the string of sausages, and the parrot flew over the head, squeaking, "Give us a kiss! Give us a kiss!" "What's the plan now?" shouted Gran in Bertie's ear. "I'm working on it," replied Bertie. He tried to catch Whiffer as he ran past. Hearing the bedlam, Mr. Cage came running in and soon wished he hadn't. The cat sprang off the table and sunk its claws into his leg. Whiffer, seeing his old enemy, jumped up and knocked him into the floor. The cat and the barking dogs then used the vet as a roundabout as they chased each other in circles. Finally, they escaped out the door with Whiffer leading the way. There was a long silence as Mr. Cage sat up and stared at the wreckage of his waiting room. Bertie bent over him. I was wondering," he said, "do you know anything about fleas?" Dad was still working at the computer when Bertie got home. "How did it go?" he asked, not looking up. "Oh," replied Bertie, "it was okay, but you did get Whiffer to the vets," Dad interrupted. "Oh, yes, I got him there. And you told Mr. Cage about the fleas?" "Yes, I told him, but the thing was—" Dad held up a hand to cut him off. "Tell me later, Bertie. I've just got to finish this." He pulled out a £5 note from his wallet. "Thanks, and don't mention it to Mum, eh? It can be our secret." Bertie took the £5 note and left. He tried to explain, but that was the trouble with grown-ups. They never had time to listen. Anyway, he had a feeling Mum and Dad will find the truth soon enough. Perhaps when Mr. Cage phoned about the damage, or when they noticed that Wilfo was still crawling with fleas. Soon, it was probably best to spend the money while he had the chance. Bertie took the matchbox from his pocket and slid it open in a fraction. Now, he said, peering inside, where could he buy a trapeze? That's the end of this channel. If you liked it, please click many likes and subscribe Reading Club. I'll come back tomorrow with a new and improved channel. Bye, everybody.